I'm Sarah, and this is Creatives Processing, where creatives reveal their process and process what it means to create. Today's episode is a little different. Instead of diving deep with one guest, I'm sharing some media recommendations from the creative professionals I've interviewed this season. With the holidays coming up, think of this as both a gift guide for the creatives in your life or a way for yourself to prepare for creative work in 2026. These aren't your typical creative inspiration lists. These are real recommendations from working professionals who have found unexpected wisdom in unlikely places. We've got books about how architecture shapes music, overcoming creative resistance, and some small business fundamentals. We've even got a wrestling match that's a masterclass in audience connection. I've grouped these into 3 categories: insights from musicians, practical resources for creative entrepreneurs, and unexpected pop culture wisdom. Then I'll give you my personal recommendations. So let's dive in with music producer, film composer, and songwriter John Michael Ruschel.
This book, How Music Works by David Byrne, is an incredible piece of literature. The fundamental tenet of this book is basically David Byrne believes that the idea that an artist is this person in the gutter looking up at the stars and just outputting their pain and etc. is not what he says that's not what artists do. They actually scan their environment like birds and adorn the environments that they're in with music. And he thinks that the medium in which music is transmitted, whether it be the type of speakers like PA systems in disco, Studio 54 kind of things, or bass subwoofers for cars, influences how people make music more than
Interesting.
just the internal thing. It's an incredible book. He goes into like nauseating detail, and it gets a little crazy at times, but it's enjoyable. I mean, he talks about like, one of the metaphors he uses is like he goes into the architecture of CBGBs, right? And how it was this tight, small room where basically like notes died. There was not a lot of echo, right? And so it sounds better in that space to play real fast and play a lot of notes. And so his theory is that the reason why punk rock sounds the way it does is because they were in that space creating that music.
Does he talk about like the difference of like the New York punk scene sound versus the UK sound?
Not so much. I mean, like one difference, an analogy he uses is like the Rebirth brass band at the Maple Leaf Bar in New Orleans versus Wynton Marsalis at Lincoln Center in New York, right? It takes a really long time for those notes in Lincoln Center to hit the back of the room and then come back to you. And then you think about bands like U2, like their early records are very like ding, 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 almost kind of Joy Division-y, punk, proto-punk kind of thing, or post-punk kind of thing. And then they start playing arenas, and then it starts getting more, lengthy and things. It's a really compelling way of thinking about art, as opposed to just going like, what is this thing inside of me? It's actually like, oh, well, what is the internet? Why do people like certain things on the internet? What is the function of this medium? And and how can I serve that medium?
John Michael recommended How Music Works by David Byrne, which challenges the romantic notion of the tortured artist creating from pure emotion. Byrne's theory is that environment shapes art more than internal feelings, that punk rock sounds the way it does because of the acoustics at CBGBs, and that U2 sound evolved as they moved from clubs to arenas. The idea that artists scan their environments like birds and adorn it with music reframes creativity as responsive and collaborative rather than purely self-expressive. It's a compelling way to think about creative work. Not just what is this thing inside of me, but what is the function of this medium and how can I serve that? This would make a great gift for any creative who thinks deeply about how context shapes their work. Next up, Craig Winslow of experiential light art studio Winslow Studio, followed by homewares entrepreneur and prop stylist Kira Corbin. You mentioned The Art of War, which The War of Art.
War of Art, yeah.
One is Sun Tzu, the other is the play on
Yes,
The Art of War.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I forget now who recommended it. Maybe my friend Mike Ackerman. But it definitely is like I've read it multiple times, and every time I read it, it has this kind of impact on me where I'm like, it's always a gut punch. Like even now, like, you know, 10, 15 years into like a professional, I guess, professional career, it still has this like impact of like, oh, like, some little morsels of it. And the focus on it is like kind of fighting the resistance you feel in a creative field where like you have this idea to do something or you have this like passion project idea and like there's always something kind of stopping you. And they refer to it as resistance, but it just kind of gives you this kind of like strength to be like, yeah, I can overcome this resistance and ways to inspire making that next step. And yeah, I recently reread that, and that was a like a nice kind of moment to kind of revisit some of the things and see
Yeah.
some growth in myself as well, which is nice.
Yeah,
Um,
what was that growth from like the first time that you read it to now? Like any new insights that you
yeah, I
gained?
think there was one part where the author is kind of outlining what is it to be kind of like an amateur and what is it to be like a pro, essentially, and kind of defining like what are the two things. And a lot of the kind of like pro definitions I've started to accomplish, which is really nice. But one of the things that was a bit of a gut punch was the uh, aspect of not letting what you do define yourself and your persona. And I think so early on, I would definitely define myself as like, I'm an artist, I'm a designer. And that kind of becomes the personality as well. I think a lot of creatives, it doesn't feel like work, so it becomes their personality. And I kind of feel a little bit of that where I'm like, oh, I should also just be a human, right? Like I could just go garden. I can like have other hobbies that aren't for the greater goal of being this like, you know, light artist or something.
Some of when I was really feeling stuck, a couple of the books that I read that I think are really great foundational books for kind of re-kickstarting are The Artist's Way, The E-Myth, and You Are a Badass. I think those books really, for me, they gave me a lot of perspective on my creativity and the value of it, and really just quieting a lot of like the fears or the murkiness in our brains that kind of derail us, and making clear that like how I'm working towards a better life and like why I'm working towards like really self-manifesting and really having like the life that's really going to make me the most me and the most thrilled and happy to be me. So I really thought those were great and like really foundational books. And since then I've started reading more and more books because it's like you can keep building on that. But I think those are really, they're great ones to start with.
And what I loved about those three recommendations though was like one was like about why certain small businesses fail, which was the E-Myth. The other, How to Be a Badass, was more like getting out of your own way, and The
Yeah.
Artist Way was like reconnecting with being a
Yeah.
creative person. So it's like
Yeah.
three major factors of like how you
Yeah.
live a creative life. And I'd be a creative professional, a working professional building a brand.
I will say the E-Myth is about why small businesses fail, and it is about how to run a business. It's sort of specifically about how to like franchise or sell a business, which all of us don't necessarily want to do. So I think there's a little bit of reading where you're like, yeah, okay, but maybe. But ultimately, what I actually think the E-Myth is about is self-manifesting.
Mm.
It about halfway through the book, it like he blows it open and like you get the connection. So the E-Myth is actually about like being the you that's most you also.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. And do you do with The Artist Way? I've tried it a few times, and I think for me it's I've never truly committed to actually wanting to do it. Like I'll try it and then it's always the morning pages that kill me. Just the idea of like I'm so sleepy, I need to sit down and write. It's the last thing I want to do when I first wake up, and that has always been the sticking point. But there are certain parts of The Artist Way that I've gone back to, like take yourself out on a date
Yeah.
like once a month or
Yeah.
once every whatever it is, but it's like this is just for you to get inspiration and just get out of, the silo that you're working in.
Yeah, totally. There's a lot of good reminders in there. I love that she says, do more of what you really want to do, because that's what you're supposed to be doing. Stop doing what you should do. Like, that's the thing that's killing you.
Yeah.
Like there's so many good reminders in there. And the activities, I have felt a resistance that, like, look at the activities and be like, oh, well, I know how I would answer this, so whatever. But really, if you really do them, it's impactful. But when you do the activities, I have felt physical change happen. Like, I have felt like stressed about something, and in doing an activity or like writing the things, like I have felt like lightness come into me. So it really, like, you got to do them, and you just got to like suck it up and get over it. Like, I don't know.
Okay,
Like,
I will, Kira.
just like stop being so skeptical. Like, what do you have to lose? Like,
it's always
you only have things to gain.
I
So
know,
like, if you're only worried about what you have to lose, like, you're never going anywhere. Are we here to win, or are we here to not lose?
Yeah, I feel like for me, I am two completely different people right before I go to bed and right after I wake up.
So don't do them in the morning. Do them before you go to
I
bed.
think that's it. Like, make it work for your brain. Like, if you're
Yeah,
not
I think so.
Yeah.
Totally.
Thank you for giving me the permission to do that.
I think it's okay to adapt to you, but maybe that's what you need, because otherwise it's excuses and you're not doing it, right? But like, if you just change it a little bit and that makes you actually start doing it, then that's good. Like, that's a success. That's good.
Craig's recommendation of The War of Art addresses the resistance every creative professional faces. The book posits a distinction between amateur and professional mindset that evolves with your career. Early on, you're fighting to establish yourself professionally, but later you're fighting to maintain your humanity while doing professional work. What resonates most is the idea of not letting what you do define your entire persona. When you're passionate about creative work, it's easy to become, I am a designer, instead of, I am a person who does design. Having identity outside your work isn't just healthy, it makes your creative work better. Kira recommended a powerful trio: The Artist's Way, The E-Myth, and You Are a Badass. Together, they address three major challenges creative professionals face: reconnecting with creativity, understanding business fundamentals, and getting out of your own way. The Artist's Way helps you create consistent practices that reconnect you with your creative impulses. The E-Myth teaches you to work on your business instead of just in it, crucial when transitioning from freelancer to studio owner. You're a Badass tackles the mindset blocks that keep talented people stuck. Kira's smart approach is adapting these practices to work for your brain rather than following them exactly. Advice that I absolutely need to take. These would make excellent gifts for creative professionals at any stage of their career, or a great way to invest in your own growth heading into the new year. Next up, Lee Hedgeman of The Barrel Bee and Eliana Mendez of Human Centric Media.
I was thinking about that. And because we were like, what inspires, like, what kind of inspires me? And I was like, I don't take inspiration from other people or things. I learn from other things. And my big thing has always been people's lives are so unique that you can learn what people do. You can learn about how their thought process goes, and you can kind of try to apply that in some ways to yourself. But inspiration always has to like come from here inside, because that's the only thing that's keeping you going, not somebody else's faith in themselves and their story, but how you manage to do it. So I don't tend to use that word. I like to learn from things. I like to see how, like, if I did this and I applied it differently, what was going to happen. I read a lot of books. I like a lot of the technical stuff. Um, and so the genre of which I recommend things um, are herbal medicines, especially Wiccan ones. They're super fun and super funny, because we use a lot of botanicals, and botanicals matter, and they're super intentional. And when people have used them for particular things like spells, there's an intention behind it. And when we cook, there's intention. And I think for me, finding like the beginning herbalism, Wiccan herbalism book, because everything has got has intention. I made a vermouth with two other women when I was working at a distillery, and we all took a different aspect and we looked at all the herbs that went into it. So we looked at it from like a kind of like a medicinal perspective. We looked at it from a kind of like a Wiccan or, you know, pagan aspect of it. And then we looked at it in terms of like what is its general use and growing and what people use it for. And so it was a very much constructed around looking at those three aspects of something, which I find, which we had so much fun with that. What is this eye of newt, which is mustard seed actually?
Oh, that's awesome. I never knew that.
I mean, you would hear us cackling and laughing and just having a ball, to the point where people would try things and we like, come taste this. And the look on our face must have seemed maniacal because nobody would taste anything. And we were like, come taste this, come taste this. And they were like, nope.
Please come.
You guys were laughing too hard like 5 minutes ago, and suddenly you want us to taste this?
Mhm.
Absolutely not. So I have found that those books give intention to botanicals that are your everyday, like, and so when you're wanting to make something, that's kind of where I look to for learning things about things. And the second thing is I love hearing people's stories about their life when they're funny.
Yeah.
And so I love to laugh. I think it releases a whole lot of things. So I like, my recommendation is to always listen to like memoirs from comedians.
Yeah.
Oh, so
Do you have a
yeah.
favorite one?
Leslie Jones. I listened to her podcast. She did her audiobook. She read it. And more by read, she goes, if you're following along with this book, with the book, you're going to be unhappy, because she's more like telling this story. And it took me a week, like 5 days of listening in the car and just being like loving every minute of it. But there were tidbits in there that I go, I am going to try that. I think I learned a lot by listening to her story. There are some things I was like, I'm gonna try that. That's gonna be something. So for me, it's all about what can I learn from somebody.
Yeah. What different perspective and experience are they
Yeah.
offering that I can glean something
Yes.
from?
And then how am I going to apply that, you know, tactic or whatever they're doing in my own life? And I think that that's different. That's a different take than being inspired.
Do I recommend a wrestling match? Do I recommend a book? Man,
I mean, I kind of love recommending a wrestling match.
Yeah, should I recommend a wrestling match?
Do it. Yes, because it ties into like everything you were just saying.
Okay, all right. You ready?
Yeah.
Okay. The thing I would recommend is Damian Priest wrestling the rapper Bad Bunny in San Juan, Puerto Rico. It was at Backlash 2023, I think it is. It's on Peacock. You can look it up on YouTube. That shit is incredible. It is the biggest Puerto Rican superstar in the history of the world. I don't know, definitely currently, coming out to his own song and an arena full of people in San Juan. This match is incredible. It's a San Juan street fight. It's incredible because both of the wrestlers are Puerto Rican. They're both really talented. Bad Bunny trained for multiple years to do professional wrestling and is like astounding at it. And you're watching someone who's not just like one of the most popular rappers and musicians in the world, but an incredible songwriter. Now also an incredible athlete, also a very attractive human being. Just blow the roof off the place. And the joy of the people in the crowd getting to see their hometown hero participate in something like that. And the feeling of seeing themselves in these two people at the pinnacle of the sport finally return home to their like place of their heritage and demonstrate such a level of like excellence to like an adoring crowd that just eats every single moment of it up. It's one of the coolest things I've ever seen in media. And last night when I had my WrestleMania party, you know, like wrestling is funny. now I got it. Wrestling is funny because when people are not familiar with it, they'll do this thing where they're watching it, but they kind of want to pretend they're too cool. They're like, they like want to roll their eyes.
Yeah, that used to be me in high school when my friends would play show wrestling. I'd be like, I'm better than this.
For sure. You know, that shit back in the day was really misogynist. So I can't blame any femme person for not liking wrestling back then. It's really funny because when people are watching wrestling who they want to pretend that they take themselves too seriously to like indulge in it. But there's this cool thing where they will simultaneously be making fun of it, but also you'll see their eyes lighting up and they can't look away. And they're like, they're still like exclaiming when something crazy happens. And like, they're making jokes about it, but they're making a lot of jokes about it. They kind of can't stop talking about it. Like, there's this incredible feeling of like, you want to pretend you're above this, but it's working on you. I can tell it's working on you. And last night at my WrestleMania party, you know, people wanted to make fun of John Cena and Cody Rhodes wrestling for the WWE Championship. But when I put on Damian Priest versus Bad Bunny in San Juan, the room like locked in. I put it on after WrestleMania. They locked in and were like, oh, okay, well, like this is some hot shit. And it's because, this ties it back in. It's because of the relationship those performers had with the audience, the feeling of interaction, the relational connection between the performers and the people in the crowd is absolutely electric. It's an incredible piece of media. I would encourage anybody to see it. Also, Puerto Ricans are wonderful, beautiful people, and they deserve as much celebration as possible. So that's my recommendation.
Killer recommendation. I love it. Thank you so much. This is going to be, I cannot wait because I imagine everybody else is going to be like, here's a podcast about creative inspiration. Here's a book, you know, It's the Artist's Way, or like, you know, Creative Quest. It's like, I want you to watch this wrestling clip. I love it. It's the diversity of inspiration. I absolutely love it. Lee's approach to learning from herbal medicine guides and comedy memoirs represents a mature way to think about creative development. Lee says inspiration has to come from inside, but you can learn tactics and approaches from anywhere. Herbal medicine and Wiccan practices might seem unrelated to creative work, but they're really both about intention, process, and understanding how different elements combine to create desired effects. Comedy memoirs like Leslie Jones offer insights into timing, audience connection, and the vulnerability required for authentic creative expression. But it's Eliana's recommendation that really challenges conventional thinking. On the surface, watching Bad Bunny wrestle Damian Priest seems completely unrelated to creative work, but when you think about it, professional wrestling is live theater meets athletic performance meets marketing spectacle. Truly one of the most complex creative forms out there. I am a believer now. What makes this match special is the cultural significance and the relationship between performers and audience. Wrestling returned to Puerto Rico after decades, with hometown heroes at the pinnacle of their respective fields. The audience locked in completely, that electric feeling of total engagement that every creative professional is trying to achieve. Bad Bunny didn't just show up for a publicity stunt. He trained for years to genuinely master the medium. That's the kind of respect and commitment required for authentic creative collaboration. It's community building through creative work that serves something larger than individual achievement. All right. I'd be remiss if I didn't add a couple of my own recommendations to this list. So what do I recommend that you read next year? First is The Sunny Nihilist by Wendy Sifrit. This book completely reframed how I think about productivity culture and the pressure to constantly optimize everything, including creativity. Sifrit argues that accepting the meaninglessness of a lot of what we do is actually liberating. It frees us from the exhausting need to make everything significant and purposeful. For creative professionals who burn out trying to make every single project life-changing, this perspective is so refreshing. Sometimes good work is just good work, and that's enough. My second recommendation is The Crossroads of Should and Must by Elle Luna. I've revisited this book multiple times since it was first gifted to me from a dear friend after graduating college. It's a short visual essay about the difference between the life you think you should live and the life you must live. Luna's distinction between should and must cuts right to the heart of creative decision-making. Should is external, what others expect, what seems practical, what looks impressive. Must is internal, what you're genuinely called to create. The book helped me recognize when I was making choices based on what looked good versus what felt right. Both of these books challenge the hustle culture narrative that pervades creative industries. They're about finding sustainable ways to stay connected to why you started creating in the first place. The common thread here across all recommendations is intentionality. Whether it's David Byrne analyzing how architecture shapes music, or Bad Bunny spending years learning professional wrestling, or Julia Cameron prescribing morning pages in the artist's way, they're all about creating deliberate practices that serve your creative goals with intention. As you head into 2026, consider this. Creative growth is actually quite practical. It's about exposing yourself to different ways of thinking, finding tactics that work for your brain, and maintaining practices that keep you connected to your creative impulses. Now, as I head into 2026, I'm going to take some time to wind down, take stock, celebrate the wins and growth, and prepare for the next. One of my favorite traditions my partner and I have is celebrating every New Year's Day with some R&R, ramen, and resolutions. We reflect on the year we had, what we did, saw, accomplished personally and professionally, and plan for the year ahead. Now, this is hearty work, so a steaming bowl of ramen paired with an ice-cold glass of Japanese lager is the reward and the reminder of how delicious life can be. I'll be back in early 2026 with more conversations and insights from a seriously wonderful batch of creatives. I am so excited to share them with you. But in the meantime, I'd love to hear about what unexpected sources have influenced your creative work. Share your recommendations at Creatives Processing on Instagram or email me at creativesprocessing@wordofmouthcreative.co. Thanks for listening to Creatives Processing this year. That's all from me for now in 2025. Till next time, stay human, stay curious.